biological father was very physically abusive to my mother and my three older siblings, and he passed away when I was 18 months old. So when I was in a tween, 12 years old, we lived on the Severn River outside of Annapolis, Maryland, and there was 100 steps that went from the river dock up to the house. And it was always like my happy place. And they brought me home by boat because it was quicker than a car ride. So me and my girlfriend, it was like a happy time in my life. And I'm climbing those 100 steps, we're laughing and we're going up the stairs. And then all of a sudden my father greets me at the door and tells me that my older brother had tragically died while serving in the US Army. So my whole world just came crumbling down. It was that because I was so happy and something tragic happened, I equated my happiness to something bad happening. So I never allowed myself to get happy and to feel happy. Because probably 3 or 4 years later was when I hit rock bottom, as anybody would do if you're using that much drugs. When you go through something so tragic like that, it just, you just, number one, you stop taking life for granted, but you just realize how precious life is and how every day truly is a gift.
The power you seek lies within you, as we are each infinite beings living a human experience. The truth of who and what we are has been hidden from us until now. Awaken, my friends, to this new reality that we are in fact creating everything through the power and the gift of our wonderful imagination. Join me as I unlock the secrets of our past and reveal the truth that has been clouded in this veil we call life. What reality will you choose to create today? The choice is yours. Welcome, my friends, to My Reality Practice.
Hello and welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me today on the Reality Practice Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Kramer, and today's guest is Sandee Sgarlata. Sandee is a 2-time award-winning author, certified life coach since 2004. She's a public speaker, a retired U.S. national and international figure skating coach, gold medalist in ice dancing, and has spent the past 20 years helping people create lasting changes in their lives. Due to several tragedies that deeply affected her, along with hitting rock bottom with drug abuse in 1990, she spent the last 30 years in her own quest to find and maintain a sense of peace and happiness, especially during times of stress and chaos. Sandee's recent best-selling book, Happiness Solved: Climbing 100 Steps, is a self-improvement book, part memoir, and workbook. She is also the host of the Happiness Solved podcast, which is ranked number 11 out of the top 80 happiness podcasts. She offers coaching programs, online courses, and one-on-one coaching for elite athletes and corporate leadership. So without further delay, let's welcome Sandee to the show. How are you doing today, Sandee? Thanks for joining me.
I'm doing great. And it's always, when somebody's reading my bio, I'm just sitting here, I'm like, okay, yeah.
It's pretty hefty. I mean, you've had some amazing experiences, it sounds like, and you've had quite a career, just the whole Olympic, aspect of it, and gold medals and training the elite athletes. That could be a whole show in and of itself, but I definitely want to dive deeper into everything in terms of, this concept of happiness. You say that happiness is something that will never be mastered. It is a practice. And for you, it sounds like, you've had to learn it the hard way, more or less, because you've experienced some tragedies that I'd love to dive into, kind of find out what was this rock bottom, what happened, and how did you pick yourself up, because it sounds like you definitely rewrote your entire story and changed the direction of your life forever by what it is you did, and now you get to teach that to people. So why don't you take it from there? It's what were those tragedies, if you wouldn't mind sharing, what kind of happened that set you down this path, I guess, of discovering true happiness?
Yeah. Well, there's been multiple tragedies in my life, unfortunately. But now, as I know, is that those things happened for me, not to me.
Mm.
So it started out, I guess, the one thing which I'll never know the effect that it's had on me because I don't remember, but my biological father was very physically abusive to my mother and my three older siblings. And he passed away when I was 18 months old.
Okay.
So I was kind of a witness to it. So I don't know really, I'll never know really what
Right. And you
effect
say
that
you were
had on
18 months old?
18 months old when my
Okay.
father died.
Okay.
And we moved to Baltimore, Maryland. My mom got remarried to the man that raised me since I was 3 years old. He passed away in 2016, and he was a tough father. He was really, really tough, amazing, right? But
Mhm.
you know, we all have that love-hate thing sometimes, especially with a step parent. But he's the only father I ever know. My book, Happiness Solved, Climbing 100 Steps, the Climbing 100 Steps, that's my memoir part of it.
Okay.
And the 100 steps, climbing 100 steps is kind of like a metaphor. So when I was in a tween, 12 years old, we lived on the Severn River outside of Annapolis, Maryland. And there was 100 steps that went from the river dock up to the house.
Hmm.
And it was always like my happy place. Like I felt like, I don't know, like I was an athlete. It was like, I would hear the Rocky song, da da da, every time I was climbing 100 steps, and it was like my happy place. So that's kind of the metaphor of where that comes from. So there was one day, my parents renewed their wedding vows and went away for a weekend to, a honeymoon or whatever. And I was staying with a friend of mine at her cottage home, which was also on the Severn River. And I was called home early. And they brought me home by boat because it was quicker than a car ride.
Hmm.
So me and my girlfriend, it was like a happy time in my life. And I'm climbing those 100 steps, we're laughing and we're going up the stairs. And then all of a sudden, my father greets me at the door and tells me that my older brother had tragically died while serving in the US Army.
Oh,
he was
my.
19 years old.
Wow.
So my whole world just came crumbling down. And what happened from that experience was that, one, as a 12-year-old, and it was 2 weeks before my 13th birthday, I didn't understand what was going on. My mother went into a deep depression, rightly so, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until my son was born that I had just a smidgen of what that must have been like for her to lose a child, right?
Mm.
So I never dealt with the pain and grief, but on the day of his funeral, my mother had me walk up to the casket. I was raised Catholic, and so there's an open casket, and she said, "He doesn't look real. He looks like a mannequin." So I took that and ran with it. And for many years in my mind, I believed, I made up the story that he wasn't really dead, that he was in the witness protection program, or he was a spy or something like that, because it was the only thing that I could do to make sense of something that made no sense at all.
Okay.
The other story that I made up about that day, or the day that I found out that he died, was that because I was so happy and something tragic happened, I equated my happiness to something bad happening. So I never allowed myself to get happy and to feel happy, because I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Wow.
So what ended up happening, about 10 years later, I was in my early 20s and I was introduced to cocaine. And I had been introduced to it before, but I was like, part of the reason my brother died was he was on a lot of drugs. So I was very anti-drug. And I was like, I am never going to do this. So it was a weak moment. I was with friends. There was a man there that I liked who was 10 years older than me. And he was the one that brought it out. And I just gave in. Mm-hmm. And, probably 3 or 4 years later was when I hit rock bottom, as anybody would do if you're using that much drugs.
Right.
And so, so I was engaged at the time to my ex-husband, and this was in 1990. And, he gave me an ultimatum. He was like, either you stop using the drugs or get out, right? Mm-hmm. And so for the first probably year and a half, I stayed clean and sober for him, not for me.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I didn't love myself enough,
right,
to really want to get better.
Hmm.
But eventually, I realized that I did want it for me, and my life began to turn around in ways that, you can never even imagine, because, when you clear your head, and then I started going to therapy, dealing with the grief and the loss of my brother, the loss of my biological father, because that was something you still, you have to grieve,
Mm-hmm.
even though I didn't remember him. So that was what set me on the trajectory of being a complete self-help junkie, and just became obsessed with, I literally just gave away, I had the big CDs of Tony Robbins, like the first course that he
Yeah,
ever,
the originals, right.
the original Tony Robbins course. I just donated it because I'm like, I don't even have a CD player anymore. There's not one in my car, but I couldn't
Right.
let go of that, because that was like my first,
Mm.
big thing. And so I've just been, but along the way, there's been, what's happened is when you go through something so tragic like that, it just, you just, number one, you stop taking life for granted,
Mm-hmm.
but you just realize how precious life is, and how every day truly is a gift, because we're only here temporarily.
Right.
So
Physically,
even,
our bodies only are here for this moment in time, but it doesn't serve us to be angry, be sad, be hurting
yeah,
all the time, when there's so much beauty out there. There's so much happiness that exists. We beat ourselves up so often, and we don't even know
yeah,
why a lot of times, right?
yeah, no, exactly. But, with my ex-husband, I had 5 pregnancies and 1 child. And that was pretty difficult as a
Hmm.
woman,
Yeah, I can
and
imagine.
my son was like a miracle baby. My ex and I divorced in 2011, and my son, this is why I made a point of saying it was, my brother died 2 weeks before my 13th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks after my son's 13th birthday, my ex-husband, who was a very high-powered lawyer, was involved in a car accident, and he had been drinking, and 2 people were killed.
Mm.
So, I literally answered the phone one day, and it was him. And I thought that he had a DUI, and
Mm.
that's why we couldn't get a hold of him, because there was a little bit of a pattern there. Okay. Um, and I said, it's okay. Things are okay. He's like, no, I hit a motorcycle and 2 people are dead. And I had to hand the phone to my son
Mm.
and watch him on his hands and knees with fists hitting the floor, crying hysterically. And I remember talking to my best friend, and I said, I don't know how I'm going to handle this. Like, what do I do? How do I handle raising this child all by myself? Because suddenly, I was a single mother. Financially, like, it broke me financially, emotionally. Just, it was a horrible situation every way around.
Right.
There was no, just any way you looked at it. And she said to me, she was like, Sandee, everything that you have done leading up to this point, all the therapy sessions, all the coaching sessions, all the books you've read, and the thousands and thousands of hours I had spent, she goes, has led you to this moment. She's like, you got this.
Love that.
Okay. So I actually started writing my book in 2014. I never went to college out of high school. I had made it into the Ice Capades. And this was in 1983 when I graduated from high school. And at that time, the Ice Capades was very small. And 2 weeks after I graduated from high school, I was told, congratulations, you're on a waiting list. So I never got to do it. That was all I ever wanted to do. And I was like, should I go to college? Like, all my friends were going to college. I'd never even considered it. So fast forward, because I became a single mother in 2013, I was like, I better get my bachelor's degree, because I need an insurance policy, because I was coaching full time, but I had to go back to work. I had to have insurance for my son. I had to have, a consistent income. So I started writing the book. It was actually a business class where we had to come up with a company. And it was this coaching company with, I had this whole business plan and everything. But I started writing the book, And then I put it aside. And it wasn't until I was driving my son to college in 2019, and after I dropped him off, it was like the floodgates opened up. And in August of 2019, I wrote, we're at a crossroads in humanity. Like, we have to change, because at the rate we're going with all this negativity in the world, it is going to spread like a virus.
Mm-hmm.
I finished the book in January of 2020, unbeknownst to the world what was coming. And I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, I wrote that. But that's really why I wrote it, because I was so disgusted with the humanity and what is going on in the world. And even now, as we're recording this, we're on the brink of a world war. And it's people, so many people, I had thought, when the pandemic hit and when we were 6 months into it, I was like, hopefully this will really wake people up. And it didn't. It didn't.
It woke some up, but
it woke some
not
up,
enough. I say
enough.
often that everybody has their waking up moment. Like, it's certain things are going to trigger certain people. So it's just a never ending, like each time something happens, a few more are going to wake and a few more are going to awaken. And eventually, right, I think we'll all awaken to what's going on. But yeah, it's definitely a slow process. It's not happening as fast as we'd like it to happen, for sure.
Exactly. I'm sorry here. My lights just went off here because of my computer. There we go, back on. Yeah. So that was why I wrote the book. It was just something that I felt like I had to do, because everything that I talk about in my book, in the self-improvement portion, which is why are we unhappy? Because there's lots of different reasons why people are unhappy. It's not just one or two. There's multiple things. Taking care of yourself first, putting yourself first, and then all the other steps. But everything that I talk about is how I've lived my life every day for 30 years. And so it just became like I had to get it out there. I had to get this message out.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's such a great message, though, that needs to be shared with the world. And just hearing your story, I can't imagine a better person, to share this and teach it to people, because of what you've gone through. I mean, you got me teary-eyed a couple times just listening to you tell your story there. I can't even imagine, some of having to deal with what you went through. I was abandoned as well at birth by my biological father, who I thought was my biological father. Turns out he wasn't, but that's a whole nother story. That's what I do my talk and my presentation, stage presentation on, is how I rewrote my DNA. But
nice,
neither here nor there. So I was abandoned at birth. So similar, in a sense, but it sounds like, you have that abuse that played a role in there. And I know, we start getting programmed literally in the womb, through biochemical reactions in our mom, that stress your mom had, and the fear and the pain, from the abuse, had to start forming inside of you, for sure. So when you were born, you were already pre-programmed to kind of have those elevated patterns, those emotions that you didn't even know were there. But so you said 17, 18 months is when he left, or he died. He passed away. So still too young.
He just died. He was electrocuted.
Electrocuted. Wow.
He was working on power lines for Virginia Power, and his ear touched a hot wire. He was killed instantly, landed on hot wires, and fell to the ground. There was nothing left of him but his boots and his wallet.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it was, thank goodness he was already, you know what I mean? He was killed instantly.
How horrific.
Like, very tragic.
Yeah, that's terrible. It's for you at 18 months, we can't remember typically that far back, consciously, but subconsciously it's there. It's in there, and it has to be healed. That's what I think a lot of people don't understand, the power of our subconscious mind, the power of our memories, and what's in there needs to come out, or needs to be rewritten in order to heal. And that's a lot of what I teach people how to do, is to go back and rewrite those past traumas into the better stories, into empowering stories, into complete new realities, really. But yeah, that in and of itself is amazing and tragic. But let's see, the death of your brother, that to me, that got me, just the idea of you were in that happy place and then you got that bomb basically dropped on you. And I can understand 100%. You said happiness equals bad things. I think that's a lot of how people get so screwed up in depression and whatnot, because I think a lot of things happen to people when they're in a good mood. I think there's a lot of people like you that, experience tragedy and trauma when they're in that elevated place of happiness. And it psychologically just screws us up, right?
Completely. I mean, my other brother, who was 1 year apart, my three older siblings, they were all 1 year apart. And so he was 18 when my brother died at the age of 19. He's never been the same. He's now 61 years old, hasn't held a job in over 20 years. He was homeless, chronically homeless. I mean, it was just, could never. I mean, now he's in a good place, and he's being taken care of.
By reading your books, obviously. No.
I don't actually, he said he read one chapter. He goes, I couldn't read it. Like, all right, whatever. But I mean, luckily there's programs out there to help people like him, and because he is mentally ill, but he's okay. He's fine today, and he's in a good place, and he's healthy, and it's all good.
That's
but
great.
It was 40 years of misery that it was terrible.
It's really sad. I lived, most of my life up until just the last few years when I really figured it all out and started to rewrite everything. But I lived in depression, I mean, from the abandonment. I was abused sexually as a child. I have Tourette syndrome. So that's always been I'm always self-conscious of that, because I feel what people are thinking or watching me and seeing me do. And it's just, it's annoying. And that led me to drugs and alcohol and sex addiction, you name it. I had it. So I hear a lot of I feel a lot of what you experienced, because I can relate to it. And I love how you said, you used a coping mechanism. You didn't want to believe that your brother was actually dead. So I think a lot of people do that. We tell ourselves these stories to avoid the reality, right?
Yeah.
He was a secret spy, you said, or that's
witness protection.
Right.
But here's the cool thing about that, Joey. The cool thing about that is, of course, I know I eventually, as a young adult, probably in my 20s, I knew that he wasn't coming back, but every year, at least once a year, I have a dream about him. I just had it last week. The first one this year, I had it last week, where I open up the door and there he is, and we hug and we have a great conversation. And it's like, I had somebody say, yeah, he's visiting you in your dreams. I'm like, yeah. And it's incredible.
Oh, that's all.
And he's always like, he hasn't aged. I've aged. I'm like, how come you haven't aged? But it's incredible. We just have these great conversations, and that's truly a gift for me.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. I mean, I personally don't believe we ever actually die, right. Our physical bodies die. Yeah. But our energy's out there. And, for him to be able to come to you through your dreams, I totally, believe that that's happening. It's that energetic power is still out there. So that's really a hard one, I think, for people to grasp, that especially ones that have lost, loved ones or children, even, it's why did this happen? They're gone, and trying to really walk them through that they're not really gone. They're just gone in this physical sense, but they never have to truly be gone from us. It's all how we remember them. It's all in the memories, because our memories are all there really is, right?
That's right.
So if whatever we program ourselves to believe is the reality that we are creating, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, so I think there's a lot to be said about the power of the mind, you know, and you being being a Tony Robbins, that's how you first got into self-help. I dove in deep with Tony as well. And that's a lot of what he practices and teaches is, you know, this power of our subconscious mind and how imagined thoughts are no different than, you know, are using our imagination. The brain can't tell the difference, you know, subconsciously, you know, imagined or real. So for you, you know, I think you've kind of found a kind of secret, I guess, to this imagining happiness, you know, and the fact that the way you're teaching people to do it, I think it's amazing. Let me see. And
well, I had a guest I interviewed recently on my podcast. His name's Kyle Gillette, and he put it in such a great way. And I don't like to repeat something somebody else told me without saying their name, because, you know, I didn't come up with this myself, but he said in every situation, three things happen. One, you have the situation that occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you have the story that we make up.
Right.
And three is how we react to it.
Right.
So in almost every situation in life, things happen. And many times we make up assumptions of what just happened. And that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
We're just making it up.
Yes, absolutely. Nothing is actually real other than what we tell ourselves it is. And you're absolutely right in what he's saying. You know, I talk about it as the trigger. The external trigger happens to us and it sparks a memory from our past, which then creates an emotion. That emotion is going to direct us how we react at that point. Do we react in anger and fear and happiness, in joy, whatever it is, but it's all attached to those memories of whatever we believed happened and how we chose to see it, right? And chose to experience it. So
right.
Yeah, it's really, I think that's the key to mastery, you know, is when we're able to actually have any external situation come at us and be able to not react, you know, not allow the past memories, the thoughts to guide us in our next steps.
Right.
When we can stay centered and really just determine the next best step versus biochemically, you know, our programming, you know.
Right.
Let's talk about kind of the grieving process. You said it took quite a while for you, you know, obviously to go through a lot of these, but how important is it for people to go back and to actually heal these areas, these traumas? You know, I found for me, until I started going back to do the work, which was scary, was hard, and I didn't want to do it, you know, but I had to. I was at that point where I knew I needed to. My life couldn't move forward without it. So can you go into how important it is to go back and heal and to identify even how many people don't even know that they have these traumas? You know, my wife just revealed last night to me a trauma that she didn't think she had any real traumas in her life. And it came out last night. We were talking and we discovered a huge trauma that had been staring her in the face, but she'd completely forgotten about it. She blocked it out of her mind. So, yeah, can you kind of dive into that and how important it is to heal?
Yeah, I mean, it is the most important thing. And I was about to add on, so I'm glad you asked this question, because I was about to say, you know, in every situation, there's those three parts, right? The thing that happened, the story makeup, and how we react.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the caveat to that is if it's something tragic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, or even if it's somebody makes you angry, whatever that emotion is, you have to feel the feelings first.
Feelings
no
are
matter what it is.
Okay to feel the feelings, right?
You have to.
Yeah.
It's critical. If you're not getting angry over something that you should, there's things that happen that you should get angry over. It's okay.
I'm so glad you're saying this, because, you know, I've worked so hard on controlling my anger and my temper.
Oh, me too. I'm the biggest hothead. Oh my gosh.
I blow up all the time. And my wife's still like, and you teach people how to do this and control their emotions. I'm like, emotions are good. It's okay to feel these. Go on, you know, explain this for the viewers here, how it's okay. We need to feel these emotions, but we have to stay in control of the emotions, right? That's
correct. So here's the thing, you know, yes, I'm a happiness coach. I'm a mindset coach. Does that mean that I'm walking around with, bubbles and rainbows all the time? Absolutely not. Of course not. The difference is that when you learn how to go through the process, which is what I talk about in my book, and you practice this every day until you get it. It's a practice, just like you practice medicine, you practice law, you practice, it's a practice. Happiness is a practice. It's something that, you don't just lift weights one day and end up with nice guns, right? You have to keep it up. You got to do it every day. This is no different. So yes, when you have grieving to do, you have to go through those emotions. You have to feel it. And I was at a point with a therapist that, and it was kind of something I was dealing with my ex-husband, because it was a tumultuous marriage. Now I know, because I'm remarried, I can look back, and my ex and I are both very type A, and we both have a hot head, and that's like this. I cannot be married to somebody like that. It's oil and vinegar.
Right.
Doesn't work. My
I
husband now.
that completely.
Yeah.
I experienced
I'd be
my first marriage. So yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is I have a really great relationship with my ex-husband right now. He's out of prison. He was in prison for 7 years. He was released in December of 2021, which I'm so thankful that my son, who's, my ex this happened when he was 13. My son's 21. So, big part of my son's life, his father was in prison. Whole nother set of issues there.
Right.
But, right. But my son, he's in college. He made it to college. He's a junior in college. He's thriving. He's amazing. But the thing is that I recognize now, why my ex and I, why we were not good for each other. We both have tempers. We both, it would just, that's blue. No, it's not. It's purple. No, it's blue. And next, you'd have World War III going on in my house. So my husband now doesn't raise his voice, or when he does, I'm like, oh, I better back off. He's raising his voice. Oh no.
It's a warning sign. Yeah. He doesn't blow, but on big occasions, right?
Right. I mean, he's just very laid back, and we're just perfect for each other because of that. It's the yin and the yang, there's that balance there. But so my ex-husband and I, we were in marriage counseling, and part of it was like, you need to allow Sandee to just sit down and bawl her eyes out. And that was, let her go through this, because that's really what it boiled down to for me, was that I was just shoving it down inside. It would feel like there was something stuck in my throat and I needed to just not only talk it out, but I needed to cry it out, because I hadn't really done that. And that was what the grieving process looked like for me. I was in therapy for a solid 10 years.
Wow.
And I learned that I had PTSD. And it still surfaces every now and then, but I know how to handle it. And for me, things will be going really good, and all of a sudden I'll get this thought in my mind that somebody's going to die today.
That's not a good thought.
No. And at one point the therapist,
thoughts are not premonitions, right?
Right. Because then I'm like, I've got really strong intuition. And now I'm like, oh my God, am I having a premonition, or am I, no. This is your PTSD. Nobody's going to die today. That kind of thing.
Yeah. I understand.
It's a horrible thing.
I try to, when I have those bad thoughts enter my mind, which we all do, we're human. We can't keep everything out. But yeah, when I have them come in, I recognize them. I become aware that I'm having that thought. And I like to tell myself that exists, but not in this reality. There's an infinite number of realities. It can go happen in another life, in another version of me that has to experience it, but I'm in control of this reality, and that isn't happening. That is just a thought. Off it goes into the universe. So that's kind of my way of recentering, I guess, and removing that thought the best I can, is just the awareness of it, and then kind of banishing it off, allowing it to happen. Like that's fine. That can happen, just not in this lifetime, not in this reality. I'm choosing not to accept that.
Yeah. Whatever works.
Right.
You have to figure out what works for me. For me, I'm very, very, very spiritual. I'm not religious. I'm very spiritual. And I have this connection with Archangel Michael.
Mm.
And I say, Michael, and I just start talking to Michael, and it's just, I start to calm down, and like, that's how I deal with it. And then of course I'm like, stop it. This is your PTSD. Nothing's going to happen today. It's okay. But it's, yeah. So back to feeling your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, yes, I coach people on happiness. Yes, I am a happy person. Does that mean I'm always happy? Absolutely not. And that's the thing that people have to understand, is that you can choose happiness and still have all of these emotions, because we are human and we are meant to experience all of these emotions. And there is scientific data. Science says that the happiest people are the ones that experience the full range of emotions.
I like that. I mean, it has to. We have to know what the good is versus what the bad is. That's kind of the next question I was going to ask was, why do bad things happen to people? I mean, just kind of generality. It's why do children die unexpectedly? I find that's one of the most difficult things to talk to people about, is this idea of everything's happening for us and not to us. But the death of a child or a loved one, it's so hard, or sexual abuse or any of these things, it's like, we can say, oh, it's really a benefit. It's really good. You just got to find the good in it. And for so many people, they don't want to find the good. They don't want to believe that it's happening for their best interest. Why? Can you dive in? Can you talk about that a little bit?
I will tell you what I believe, okay? Because here we go. At the end of the day, do I know that this is true? Absolutely not. Do we know that Jesus lived and walked the earth 2,000 years ago? We're assuming so, but do we know that? No, we don't. Do we know that there's life after death? Absolutely not. We don't know for sure.
Right.
So all of this stuff is, we're making up stories in our head anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all making this stuff up as we go along. So whatever makes sense for you, so that you can have that peace in your heart. It just has to make sense to you. So what makes sense for me, okay, is that I believe in reincarnation. I believe we are here many, many times over. And the whole part, and I studied what's called A Course of Miracles. I studied A Course of Miracles.
I love A Course with Miracles.
15 years. I want to get back into it. I've just got so many other things going on, but I studied it. I had a group for 15 years. We had a study group.
It's truly life-changing, that book.
It really, really is. It's very life-changing. And so I really believe that we are here. The purpose for us is to grow spiritually, to get closer to be one with God. And that in all different religions, they talk about that, right? And if so, each time we're here, we're given different situations that we need to experience, because that's the way our soul evolves. That's how we evolve. Now for me, I talk to spirits and everything. I'm like, all right, I'm done. This is it. Now I get my wings, right?
Right.
Can I get my wings? Because I don't want to come back.
I wish it was that easy. It's like, I'm done with all of this. I'm ready for my wings. Meanwhile, we're probably only like freshmen still. And we still have 4 more years or however many lifetimes that will equate to. It's like, no, please. I've suffered enough. I've done it all, the whole spectrum. I'm done with 3-dimensional Earth. This is bullshit.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah,
I agree with you completely. Everything you just said. That's the same beliefs I have. And I like to say, I look at it as grade levels, right? And I just had an interview yesterday talking about it, how, imagine we're all, we're in 12th grade, our senior year of finals right now for many people, but there's also a lot of people that are just freshmen and a lot of people that are just sophomores. How can I be mad? How can I judge a freshman that doesn't know calculus because they don't know calculus? I mean, they'll learn calculus at a later grade, but it's like, how can I judge somebody for not knowing what they don't know? And, we're all going to end up in the same spot eventually. We're all going to graduate. It's just, we're all on different timelines. And like you said, we've had multiple lives. Some of us have had more lives and more learning experiences, while others are still just younger at learning this, and there's no right or wrong. Everybody's
Yep.
trying to get back to that oneness with God. So yeah, I love how you summarize that it's beautiful. And I also love that you said everybody should be entitled to believe whatever makes them feel good, whatever is, gives them peace of mind and happiness.
Absolutely.
It's
And if
why
people
do we?
believe, if you're Christian and that's what you believe, that's great. If you're, Muslim, that's great. No matter what it is, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, we don't know what's true. We don't know for sure if we're going to go behind and be judged at the pearly gates. Like, we have
Right.
no clue.
I
We
don't
don't know
think we
that.
know until we pass to the next
Right.
stage.
But
And
here's
then
the
maybe it's
thing.
all revealed, but who knows?
Right. Here's the thing. This is it. We're only here, temporarily.
Mhm.
So you can achieve heaven on earth, because that's my experience. And I choose that.
Right.
I choose to experience heaven on earth because I think it's amazing.
It said
Now,
that there are many mansions, there are many mansions in my father's heaven, or what is the saying? If I can't think of it, there are many, my father has many mansions or whatever. So it's, the idea is heaven is everywhere. We can all be experiencing our own sense of heaven if we
Yeah.
can put ourselves in that space, in that mindset.
Well, life is difficult. It's supposed to be difficult. It's not meant to be a walk in the park. Nobody has it that way. Every single human on the planet at some point in your life is going to go through tragedy and trauma and, difficulties. And it's just the way it is. And that's why, when I went back to what I believe, what makes sense for me, that's why I think that is the case, that we're growing. Our spirit needs to evolve.
Right. It's a never ending process of getting better each and every day, each and every year, each and every lifetime. There's so much to learn. I think we'll never know it all. We'll never learn it all until the moment we do learn it all. And then we're back one with God again. We become God, as a whole.
Right. And so that's why I believe sometimes you have children that die young, or, because their parents needed to experience something. And it's tragic and it's horrible, but it makes sense to me.
Right. And as it does with me, it's hard to, I guess I can relate when I tell people, because I was abused and the way my childhood played out, which was a great childhood, but I accept what happened. I'm able to be me, it made me into who I am. I love how you said that earlier, everything that's happened to you has created the person you are, that was able to cope with the trauma, when your husband ended up going to prison, and your therapist said everything you've been doing has built you into this person that is able to handle it, is able to persevere through it. And that's when I rewrote my DNA and had my talk with my mom, that was really what I told her. The gist of when I first started the conversation, it was, I thanked her for everything she had done, and I forgave her for anything she thought she did wrong, because I was like, you did everything exactly perfect. Everything had to happen exactly the way it happened for me to be me, and for me to cope and understand and to be where I'm at in life. I'm like, if you would have done anything differently, I wouldn't be this amazing person that I am. I'm just so grateful. I'm so thankful for it. Thank you for all the bad shit that happened to me.
Exactly.
It makes you so much stronger. And I think the healing process really helps us uncover that truth. When we take I said earlier, it's so hard, it's scary to want to try and go back and heal, but it reveals such beauty. It reveals so much strength in us that it's so worth it. Right. It changes everything. So,
yes.
well, we're getting close to the end here, the interview, and I wanted to find out a little more, where can they find you? Where can they get your book? Where's your podcast? I assume on all the major.
On all the, podcast is also called Happiness Solved. It's on all the podcast networks. You can also go to happinesssolved.com. All the episodes are automatically put into that, on that site as soon as they're released. My website is sandeesgarlata.com. You can email me at sandeesgarlata.com. And if you do go to my website, there's a button at the top right hand where you can schedule a free 15-minute call with me.
Fantastic. Yeah. If you're struggling with your mindset in terms of getting out of your own way, if you're stuck in this sadness, if you're stuck in depression, it's all a mindset. It's all a shift. And it sounds like, we have to practice this. And you, Sandee, are the prime example of how to do this. And if you guys need somebody like Sandee, I 100% recommend you reach out to her and start learning these techniques, learning these, steps to, one, heal from the past, and two, learn how to be happy. I mean, that's the whole goal here, is to enjoy life, to resonate at that higher frequency of
Yes.
love, forgiveness, compassion, and get out of this negative, lower frequency of fear and anger and hatred. We have to remove that from the world, and it's being done, one soul at a time. Sandee, you're helping the world. I'm doing my part. When we all come together to do our part, this world will become our heaven on earth.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
Right.
We got to reach all these people.
Where can they find your book at? Is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And you can also, if you want a signed copy, as long as you're in the United States, you can purchase it on my website, and I'll sign it.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'll have to hop on your site here before too long and order one so I can get a signed copy from you.
I'll send one to you anyway.
Oh, you
don't have to purchase it.
You're so sweet. Thank you. All right, it's time for the last question. I ask every guest when they come on the show here, since this show focuses on creating your reality. If I could snap my fingers right now and you could be projected into any reality whatsoever of your wildest dreams, what would that look like and why?
Where I am right now. I've got an amazing husband. I've got a great son. I wouldn't change a thing.
Oh, that's
I love the way my life is now. It's better than it ever has. And I'm getting on a plane in the morning to go to Hawaii for 2 weeks. So, hey.
Life is good for you. Absolutely.
Life is good. I wouldn't change a thing.
You got any room in your luggage? I can contort pretty small if I need to. So, Sandee, thank you so much. This has been such an awesome and amazing conversation, very enlightening. And, I think it really confirms a lot of what I talk about on my shows and my interviews, as far as our mindset and how we can choose. Being happy is a choice, but you have to practice it just like anything. It's a constant awareness, correction, do it again. Like my first mentor always said, the first 100 times you do anything, you're going to suck at it. So we got to stop beating ourselves up and appreciate the little wins, right? And just keep one foot in front of the other each and every day. So thank you again for coming on the show, Sandee. And thank you everybody for watching and tuning in today. If you like the show, if you like this interview, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Go ahead and hit it so you never miss an episode from Reality Practice. And last but not least, remember to ask yourself, what reality are you choosing to create today? Bye now.